Right, what's happening, everyone? Welcome along to another episode of Unplayable. Now, in a week that started with a storm in a tea peg, finished with Rory McIlroy holding the giant teapot of a trophy on Monday morning. Joining me to discuss, we have the full complement here with Joe, Cooper, and Dave. Going to start with the positives. We'll discuss Rory's win because it was box office. I said in our little WhatsApp group that it was probably the best tournament we've seen since the Open. After we discuss Rory, we're going to have to get to Patrick Reed. His week was filled with controversy from the start of the week until the end. We had the incident with Rory on the range before the tournament started, which you've all probably seen. But more importantly, another blatant case of cheating on the 17th on Saturday with his ball getting stuck up in that tree. We'll also discuss the news that's emerged in the last 24 hours or so that Shane Lowry has split with his caddy, Bo Martin. So, Joe, coming to you first. All the talk over the last little while has been that Jon Rahm has been top dog over the last couple of months. Rory showed everyone why he's ranked number one in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Rahm definitely has set down a marker this year, winning two of his first tournaments. And Rory obviously making his first start of the year, so needed to kind of show him who's boss, I suppose, being number one still, and obviously wanting to hold on to that. So that was one factor going into. You just mentioned the other factors going into the week, which kind of ensued throughout and created this narrative around, you know, his week without focusing on the golf. Really, I think, you know, there was even talk like Rory put new wedges in the bag, and like no one actually really talked about that. It was all about the Reed stuff, but I think we kind of alluded to it as well afterwards. Like, this kind of stuff just fuels Rory now. Like, he just, you know, uses it to his advantage. And clearly that, coupled with the fact that there was a wet golf course, obviously starting out the week, just seemed to play right into his hands. So, no, it was brilliant. Like, looked obviously, you know, at his best at times. Didn't have his best golf, obviously, on the final day. But, like, we're talking relative stuff here. Like, he shot 68 4 under, obviously, in the final round. This is a bad day for Rory McIlroy, but obviously for anyone else it would be seen as, you know, a very solid final round when you're in contention. But yeah, 68 last round. Obviously, that like those first 8 holes, I think he parred all 8 of them. It was the 9th before he made a birdie, and it was kind of like shades of the Open almost. It was feeling like, you know, he's just, you know, he's parring, like he's got this buffer, but then obviously Reed comes out, does a Cam Smith version, obviously, from the Open, and you're kind of like, oh no, this is we've seen this before. But he obviously got his game together. He had the lefts. I think he was pulling some iron shots there in the back line, kind of uncharacteristically, like, you know, mid iron shots that you wouldn't normally see him miss the green with. But he was obviously relying on a short game at times, and he was well able to do that. So, no, yeah, it was tense there. I would say for most of us, the overriding feeling, you know, coming down the stretch there was just hoping Reed wouldn't win. You know, it was less so, you know, hoping for Rory to win. It was more the fear of Patrick Reed, obviously, you know, trumping him in this event. But yeah, showed great courage down the last there just to lay up. I think like that was a really smart decision he probably wouldn't have made couple of years ago. And relied on his wedge game on 18, something we talked about as well, that's become a strength, and, you know, got it up and down from 92 yards, and you know, a nice little fist pump, which I'm sure was great for Patrick Reed to see anyway. So, no, great week for Rory. Cemented himself at the top anyway. I'm not sure he'll get away with that kind of loose swinging, you know, if he's up against the guys now in the elevated PGA Tour events. But a win's a win. So, yeah, fair play to him.
Dave, Joe's just said it there. Like, Rory, we would have always said in the past how Rory, when he's got his A game, there's no one better than him. He is absolutely class. But he kind of did have his B game this week, and he's got it done, which isn't always what you would say about him.
Yeah, I think that this is a win that showed an increased degree of maturity. I think that's what stood out to me. As Joe said, like, there was shades of the Open, certainly on the front nine, early back nine, where it just looked like things weren't really going McIlroy's way. Obviously, Reed is coming in his rearview mirror, and with the increased level of pressure that brought, given the context of the week for McIlroy, to show the mental strength that he did and to play the game that he did, showed a real level of maturity and kind of, as we said, cements him as the world's number one player, but also like fills me with even further confidence that he's going to win a major this year, because he said himself there was more kind of satisfaction and more pressure on that win than there should have been. But as a result, like, it had the real, for me, it felt as tense as the final round of a major coming down those last few holes, because you knew there was so much playing on it. Obviously, we all know the kind of character that Patrick Reed is. We know the history with himself and McIlroy. Like, McIlroy had never really gotten one up on Reed in a one-on-one scenario either. Like, 2016 Ryder Cup, he loses the singles match. The Masters 2018, he loses to Reed in the final round. Had to watch him. Had to sign his winning scorecard at Augusta. I think if Reed had got this one over him this week, it would have really been a tough pill to swallow for McIlroy, and I think it would have been what should have been a positive start to the season for Rory, irrespective of whether he won or came second, would have left a real sour taste, because he had his B game. It's his first outing of the year. If you shoot 18 under par with your B game, ordinarily you're going to be pretty happy with how you played, irrespective of where you finish on the leaderboard, except if Patrick Reed is the only man who shoots lower than you that week. So I think McIlroy really did show why he's the world's number one player, and I think it's a bit of a fallacy to fall into this McIlroy versus Rahm narrative. I think we need to just appreciate that they are the two best players in the world at the moment, and don't necessarily need to be which is better. But I think if you are going to get into that realm of discussing that, the fact that it happened on a week where Rahm didn't fire on a Sunday as well kind of really did outline that, all the talk about Rahm being better than McIlroy over the month of January was happening while Rory wasn't out there playing golf. And once Rory put a tee in the ground, I was going to say, pardon the pun, put a tee in the ground, he really did prove that he's still the top dog.
There's always a touch of recency bias, isn't it? Rahm wins and you think he's top dog, and Rory wins. But yeah, Cooper, Rory, as he showed last year with all the controversy that was going on, showed that, like, when there's shit going on behind the scenes or even publicly, he can still produce his best.
Yeah, well, like, he's been under kind of pressure, I guess. Well, not under pressure, but like he's been doing this for a long, long time now. You kind of forget. I think we kind of think of Rory McIlroy still as one of the, well, not maybe one of the young guys, but definitely one of the younger generation, along with Spieth, Thomas, and the guys. And you forget that he's literally been kind of on the scene. What is it? Nearly 12 years now, or maybe even longer. But it's just, we kind of think of him as untouchable, or like, I guess, bar a few dodgy rounds over his career, like really a mentally kind of strong golfer. But like, these things absolutely play on your mind. Like, I'd say, I think he said himself he wasn't too happy with his game, but like, when personal life kind of comes into the equation, doesn't matter who you are, it's still going to be playing on your mind while you're out in the course. So to be able to go out, like, especially with all the shit this week, and not only that, but then I guess the build up or the hype over, imagine a Reed versus McIlroy Sunday showdown, and then it actually happens. Like, to keep kind of focused then and stay in the moment and play the best golf you can it's something we'll never experience, but it's hard to comprehend, I guess, how tough it is really mentally to go out and do it. He did, like you can look at Reed's round then and say, yeah, if Reed had have kind of drove it right on 16 or drove it better on 16, he may have made par, drivable 17s for a two-shot swing there, and then McIlroy's two birdies on the last two wouldn't have mattered. So like, it was incredibly close. Like, it was literally a wayward shot from Reed, plus maybe trying to stable himself and not getting it up, between that and him actually getting one up on McIlroy again. So it was incredibly close. And I think, yeah, as the lads have said, it's we're all nearly breathing a sigh of relief on a fucking Monday morning, or else our week was going to start off extremely bad. But of course, all the controversy then comes back to what happened the day before on the 17th. And yeah, it's whether you're calling for him to be disqualified or just saying that's classic Reid. I guess that's a whole other conversation.
Well, yeah, you might give him the benefit of the doubt. You might give somebody else the benefit of the doubt, but it's impossible to give Patrick Reid the benefit of the doubt for that situation. No. He can't. He doesn't deserve it. And I mean, golf is a game of honor. It's one of the first things it's when you're a kid playing golf for the first time, and the people are teaching you about the game and etiquette. Like, one of the first things that you're taught, if not the first thing, is that golf is a game of honor. Like, you only need to put yourself out of line once for your name to be tarnished forever. And like, Reid's name has been tarnished on multiple occasions. Like, I think any other player on the PGA Tour or DP World Tour would have gone back to the tee, to be honest. I mean, yeah. and I think to be fair, well, not to be fair to Reid, but like, it has to be said as well that I think the referee did a really poor job, because Reid said himself that the DP World Tour haven't disputed this. Like, he wasn't actually asked which tree the ball was in.
Yeah, maybe explain the detail of exactly what happened for anyone who mightn't have seen it, because it is, I'm sure most people have, but just the man.
Yeah, so essentially in his third round, he hits a drive down 17. It ends up in one of the trees, and he's able to identify it, or he claims he's able to identify it from the markings that he uses on his ball, along with the assistance of a referee using binoculars. Subsequently, the video that Sky Sports and the DP World Tour had shows that the ball actually flew into a different tree. Now, these trees are full of golf balls. You can see from the footage, like these are, like, amateurs have been hitting golf balls into these trees for the last decade or more, and they just haven't, like, they're up so high that they just haven't been retrieved or come down. And Reid is standing there with a pair of binoculars, and he's trying to identify his ball. But as I said, subsequently, it turns out he's identifying a ball in the incorrect tree. But as I say, anyone else, you might get the benefit of the doubt here, but you can't give the benefit of the doubt to Reid, given his track record. But also, it does have to be said, and I just to frame it that way, is that, like, the referee has done an incredibly poor job as well, because that should be the first thing. Like, if you think about it yourself, you hit a poor drive. Like, the first thing that you're going to be thinking is, where is it? Like, which bush is it in? Which tree is it in? You're not going to be thinking, like, if you come across a ball that has similar markings to your one in a bush that you know you didn't hit it into, you're not going to claim your relief from there. I mean, it's simple stuff. It's the basics. But for the referee, and apparently he was the head referee of the tour, I just wonder, was he almost bottling it and find himself in the spotlight under a bit of pressure, knowing that a ruling involving Patrick Reid was going to be replayed, and he just forgot the most basic thing, the most basic question to ask: which tree is your ball in, Patrick? Because if Reid has proven, yeah, like Reid has proven that if you give the man an inch, he'll take a mile. And we mentioned it. We even mentioned it last week on the pod about the controversy with the ruling in Torrey Pines. Like, a year to the day, he's involved in another one in Dubai. I mean, it's just incredible. Like, you can put the man on LIV, you can put him on PGA Tour, you can put him on the moon, and he'll somehow find a way to get himself involved in these kind of controversies. So it's very hard to have sympathy for the man. Really,
I will say, Dave, that, like, I totally agree. Like, that blundered from the front on the missing the tree. But if you actually listen back to the recordings on Sky, he does ask the right questions. And in terms of, like, literally, he cannot call Reid a liar. He can't say, you're talking shit, you're a cheater. And so he asks straight up, is that your ball, or can you identify the ball? I think, and Reid then goes into fucking lawyer mode, as he's been completely conditioned to speaking properly over the last few months with all his lawsuits. To me, it looks like my ball. And the referee goes, it can't look like your ball. It's 100% your ball or not your ball. And he goes, to me, it's my ball. So, like, again, just somehow using the right words, or not the right words, the kind of legal words, to make sure that he can't be hung up on it later on. It was a perspective or a personal opinion.
Yeah, but if the referee asks him, what tree is your ball in, Patrick, then Reid can't tell him.
Oh no!
Like,
Oh, totally. No.
that's
That's A1. I totally get that, but I just mean in terms of like you said it there, giving him an inch, like he will literally take your fucking hand off. He's a scumbag.
There's three things here with Patrick Reed on this week as a whole. I mean, first things first, he shouldn't be there at the start of the week. He's off to LIV. He shouldn't be there. So that's one controversy. Second controversy is he obviously has that incident with Rory on the range. Like, and if that incident hadn't happened, the rest of the world wouldn't have found out that his lawyer had subpoenaed Rory on Christmas Eve. So that just shows how much of a bollocks he is. And then the third situation is obviously this situation with the tree. Now, I completely get what you're saying, Cooper. He has kind of framed it in such a way that he knows how to not get himself in trouble. But the situation is, he's able to drop the ball from where the tree is instead of going back to the tee. So he should have gone back to the tee, which would have cost him one shot. Now, thank God Rory got the job done and won by a shot, and Reed actually finished 2 shots ahead of Lucas Herbert. But if Rory and him had a tied, and or he had a finish like 1 shot ahead of Lucas Herbert or whatever, I mean, it would have been absolute nuts, because it should have cost him a shot. So he should have been hitting 3 off the tee, but instead he's hitting 3 up by the green, which is just 1 full shot.
But he should have been disqualified. I mean, they've used television footage in the past to disqualify people for misdemeanors in the course. I mean, I think, like, incorrect marking of a ball, or they've used slow mo.
I think Harrington and the Masters.
Yeah, Harrington. Yeah, it's happened to Harrington, and that was a totally innocent mistake. So I didn't understand why when they saw the footage of the ball going into the wrong tree that he wasn't disqualified for signing for a wrong score.
They've changed that. They made a rule change a few years ago, because I think it was Harrington. Was it Harrington in Abu Dhabi a few years ago? His ball just oscillated or moved as he was set to put. Yeah. But they basically changed the rule that said TV can't subsequently penalise the players.
Happened to DJ in the US Open with Shane, didn't it?
Sorry, Jug one.
Happened to DJ in the US Open with Shane as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously they had that oscillating ball with him as well.
Oh, sorry, I just blacked out there. You said DJ and the US Open that he won, was it?
Yeah, the one with Shane, 2016 US Open, I think.
Yeah.
His ball oscillated. Did you see as well, like, he claimed that there was an arrow on his ball, but all the TV footage has, like, he has this black line and then a red dot beside his number. And then I think Matt Wallace was playing with him on the Sunday in round 3. That would have been some group, I'd say. But basically, he was.
What do you got against Matt Wallace?
Yeah, that's the next point. But the interviewer was like, "Oh, Reed claimed he had an arrow in his ball and whatever," and Matt Wallace was just like, "All I'll say is he said he had a black line and a red dot. That's all I'll say about it." And he's like, he left it at that, but like, he said all he needed to say there.
Yeah, really. I don't want to get fucking a lawsuit against me.
Yeah.
It was actually I totally agree, Dave. Absolutely should have been disqualified regardless. But like, just another really cool story I heard this week. Just to add to the fucking fire. Was from Gary McCord, the commentator. He was on the Foreplay pod. And he was talking about I can't remember where the competition was, but the on-course commentator went up to Reed's ball, which is in rough, like knee high, and he said, "Yeah, it's wedge out job." And Reed went up to the ball, I think with a wedge or a 9er or something like that. Went back to the bag, grabbed a wood, and McCord asked the commentator or the on-course guy, he's like, "He surely can't get a wood out of there." And he just replied, "That's a different lie to what I saw a few minutes ago," and said nothing else. And McCord moved on really fast. He went off air then and said, "What the fuck are you doing putting me in that position?" So it's just that every time something happens, more stories come out about shit that he's done. And I don't know who's going to finally pull him up on it, but until he's caught or severely punished, he's just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's got to be a case that people just don't want to be paired with him anymore. I mean, I can't imagine any of the LIV guys in LIV will want to be paired with him in a LIV event. Never mind in a major, or if he somehow manages to get back into a PGA Tour event, or then these DP events. Like, but it does. The one thing about the finish that we had on Monday morning, like given how box office was, it does raise the broader question of, does the DP Tour really want to win these legal proceedings against the LIV players that are going to be the proceedings they're scheduled to happen next week. So I think that the entirety of next week they're going to be on, and then it's the outcome's not expected to be known until late February, early March. But I've no doubt that the DP World Tour lawyers are going to go in and hellbent on winning. And I'm sure Keith Pelly and the executives of the European Tour want to win it, but like, are they cutting off their noses to spite their face here? Because I mean, there's so many layers to this, in the sense that, you said he shouldn't have been there. He potentially took the spot of someone like Gary Hurley or John Murphy, one of the Irish boys. It doesn't even need to be an Irish guy. That's just people we're familiar with. I mean, there's multiple guys that are on the fringes of these big events that have cards but don't have the higher playing privileges. But they aren't going to create the box office that Patrick Reed creates in terms of this scenario. And we can argue till the cows come home about whether it's good for the game or not, but it's certainly good for TV ratings, and it definitely was a far greater viewing spectacle with McIlroy versus Reed, good versus evil, coming down the final stretch of holes. I mean, if Reed hadn't been there and McIlroy had a 3 or 4 shot lead over Lucas Herbert and closed out the Dubai Desert Classic, I think this is an entirely different conversation. And I suppose the other side of the LIV argument with the DP World Tour, because it's different, right, from the PGA Tour. I mean, we can all agree that, like, the PGA Tour still has its star names. The DP World Tour gets the star names in for these couple of weeks in the Middle East in January. Then we mightn't see Rory McIlroy at a European Tour event again until after the Open. I suppose the Scottish Open now is not even really a fully fledged European Tour event. It's one of those co-sanctioned ones. But if you had Cam Smith, DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, Mickelson, Koepka showing up for the Irish Open, I mean, it does turn it into a different event. And again, I'm just using the Irish Open example. So it does raise the question of, to play devil's advocate, does the European Tour really want to win these legal proceedings next week?
Yeah, like
Very fair, yeah.
Callum Shinkwin and, as you said, Lucas Herbert coming down the stretch at Rory is not going to, get the same eyes on it. Selfishly, I had the same feeling afterwards. I was like, I want to see more of this. And as well, I think this makes the Masters even more appealing, knowing that a lot of these guys are going to, like, we know Reed obviously has his lifetime exemption to Augusta, and you wouldn't put it past him, showing up and being in contention on Sunday. This guy gets fueled by controversy. Like, I think the more drama, the more people that are putting him down in the media, actually, that's motivation for him. I think he operates in a completely different way than a lot of the other guys.
Yeah, and let's just say as well, like, briefly, because I don't want to get into a realm of praising Patrick Reed, but like, he still has his game. Like, I mean, he played some fantastic golf on the Monday. Like, he really did. I mean, it was a great round of golf. Like, bar those couple of swings that you mentioned earlier, Joe, and Cooper on 16 and 17. Like, he played almost a flawless round of golf. And like the second shot to 18, knowing that he minimum needed a birdie, if not an eagle, was absolutely top drawer. Like, so, you're getting a world class, for all his faults, and Lord knows there's many of them, and we're only touching on a fraction of them here this morning. Like, he is a world class player who on his day has proven that he can win majors. He's proven that he can win big points in Ryder Cups, and yeah, he absolutely gets fueled by controversy. He gets fueled by being the bad guy. There's no question about it. I think, though, the DP World Tour players would much rather not see him around, just for all of these reasons. I mean, like, I think it'd be a bitter pill to swallow for any of them to see Reed lifting that trophy on Monday morning. I'd say they could probably make their peace with someone like Cam Smith coming in and win one of their events, but no, like, no one wants to see Patrick Reed win one of these events.
No, but it is that's a good point in terms of, like, I guess the DP World's maybe not hidden agenda, but like secretly kind of hoping that this gets passed, because golf doesn't really have that as like a single sport. or as an individual sport in terms of like proper hatred. The only time we really hate someone is if there's personal feuds between players or they breach the rules or something like that. Like it's very hard to make that good versus evil argument for any kind of case in golf. So if you do have, I don't know, out of the 48 or however many guys are in LIV now, say the top 20 going into a European Tour event every week, it could start fueling that kind of a boost to the ratings, especially if the bigger guys are there. And it's just something we've never seen in golf before. I still on the fence. I personally don't really want to see them there. I'd rather see the young Europeans get their chance, and looking forward towards Ryder Cups a decade down the line, making sure that the Hurleys and the guys are getting their chance, because it will just get more and more hard to qualify for the European Tour if there are an extra 50 odd names in the mix. But yeah, it will inevitably lead to a better competition, and in turn better ratings.
Just to tease that point out, and for people who don't know all the details of exactly why we're talking about the difference of the events. So I counted 9 LIV players in the field this week, including Poulter, Reed, Stenson, and the others. And obviously the big issue with that is that it's keeping the younger players out of the field. Like, so the way the DP World Tour is structured, they can't afford to pay big prize money like the PGA Tour can on a weekly basis. So they've split their events. So you've got the Rolex Series events, which is the last 2 weeks, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, where there's €7.5 million. For comparison, this week is back to a run-of-the-mill event that's got 1.8 million. So a quarter of the prize money on offer in these lowly weeks. So what it means for these lower ranked European Tour players is having, if they could have got into Dubai last week and had the chance to play for a top prize, if I think Rory won 1.5 or 1.7 million, or even Reed got 900 grand euro for second. I mean, that would be a life-changing thing for the lowly ranked European Tour player. But because these 9 LIV players are in it, they don't get the chance. But yeah, I think it's also
kind of just adding to your point, like the world ranking points based on that as well. You know, like the availability of world ranking points last week because of the strength. Obviously, the LIV guys strengthened the field, but you know, Rory already strengthens the field, and there's other guys that would add it to it. And it was one of their Rolex Series events, so like obviously the points would have been decent, but like as you say, like some of these guys coming in, like Hurley and Murphy, they're not even being given the opportunity, and it's kind of like it's a vicious cycle because obviously, you know, top 50 is key for majors, and world ranking basically dictates where you play, how far you can get in the game. And I suppose if they're not given that opportunity because the LIV guys are all playing, then it's hard to see how they'll kind of crack into. So like the majors obviously being their kind of end goal, I suppose. These guys don't want to be playing open qualifiers, you know, 2 weeks before the open takes place. So yeah, it's a very valid point, I think, and I think that'll definitely be, you know, in the court hearings next this month now, it'll definitely be a point being made, I imagine.
Dave, Bo and Shane, they've split. So the famous pairing that won the Open at Portrush. Now, there were some clear bust-ups in the last year or so, if you remember Augusta and all that, but still sad to see.
Yeah, I actually was very sad to hear that news. I mean, they have become kind of an iconic duo. There's been some very funny moments over the last few years. I was looking through Twitter last night, and there's kind of a few of them popping up, like the time that Bo had to put on his Birkenstocks because the Jordans that Lowry bought him wouldn't fit and were causing him blisters. As Lowry said, he looked like Jesus carrying for him around the back line. And then the video that they made after Lowry won at Wentworth last year, where this is my first drink and this is my last drink, and Bo's last drink is just a string of expletives, but also, like, you know, the iconic images of the two of them walking up the 18 fairway at Portrush will never be forgotten. I mean, they clearly developed a really strong bond, and I mean, it might be a bit of Irish bias here, but they kind of, for me, were one of the biggest kind of duos in golf. Like you kind of think of, there's not too many caddies now that you kind of know as well as you might know Bo, or kind of recognize. Like obviously you have Bones now with JT and you have Greller with Speed, but like there's no real big larger than life. It's Billy Foster would be another one, but like Bo and Lowry really kind of, they stood out as a pairing, like, and it worked a treat for Lowry the last time. I mean, he got rid of Dermot Byrne when he was going through a bit of a slump in 2018. And then, obviously a year later he's won a major with Bo. But there's more going to come out about this. I mean, it's still only officially reports. I don't think Bo or Lowry have actually made a statement on it yet. But like I'd be interested to hear what's actually gone down here, because it's not a great look for Lowry, to be honest. I think if every time he hits a bit of a turning point, or a bit of a slump, or he's not happy with his game, that the caddy's the first thing to move. I think it'd be interesting to hear. I'd be more interested to hear Bo's thoughts on it than Lowry's thoughts, to be honest, if you ever get them, because you've always heard that the Dermot Byrne was an amicable split, but like I don't know what you guys have heard or what people that listen might have heard, but I've heard from a couple of people Dermot Byrne's a Wicklow man, so you'll hear these things that he wasn't best pleased at all, and didn't agree with the narrative that the Lowry camp put out into the press. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out.
Do you have any?
I did hear, I think it was Brian Keogh from the Irish Golf Desk kind of was the first to report on it, and the kind of piece did kind of mention that there had been a conversation over the last few weeks kind of about where to move next. So it seemed like a when, not if scenario between them. But yeah, until there's any official reports coming out from either of them, it's better just not to speculate on it.
Yeah.
It worked so well, I suppose, the last time. That was the thing, wasn't it? Like he obviously missed that cut at the Open with, and there was all talk of him kind of in tears in his car. And I think that's when he obviously cut ties with Dermot. But and I think Alan, his brother, went on the bag then for a couple of months. So. But yeah, you'd wonder, like, it worked the last time. Was it the right time? Like, look, like you mentioned Spieth and Greller, Dave. Like, look how long Dave lasted, and Spieth's been in all sorts of trouble over the last few years. So, maybe he feels like it has been a poor enough start, obviously, to the year. Like, he lost all those 4 matches at the Hero team event, and obviously, terrible final round in Abu Dhabi, and missed the cut last week. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I actually like names as well. Like I can't think offhand who will immediately be the
no one that stands out. And I think the other, just quickly, one more point on this is that Lowry's played the most consistent golf of his life over the last year, and I'm going to say all he has to show for it. Obviously, Wentworth's a big event, but given the level he's been playing at and the positions he's put himself in, all he has to show for it is Wentworth. I mean, he contended in a lot of PGA events last year. He contended in the Masters. He got himself in a position at the Open, if you remember, on the Saturday with the 2 holeouts, that he was in a position where he could really kick on and get involved in that tournament, and he didn't do it. And he made big mistakes, and we spoke about it last week in terms of the collapse in the back nine. He made big mistakes along the way in some of those events on the PGA Tour last year. Harbour Town comes to mind. He blades a chip into the lake on the back nine. He was in control of that golf tournament. And I just wonder, is Lowry starting to, is his career starting to flash before his eyes here, and starting to realise, look, I've won a major, I've won some big events, but, I'm not closing stuff out, and maybe I need to change. That's possible. I think it would be very harsh to blame Bo for Lowry not getting over the line in these positions, but change is as good as a rest. And I think given how well it worked the last time, maybe this is something that's gonna kickstart him into winning a bit more regularly.
That's a good perspective. I hadn't really thought about it like that. Like, I would have just looked at it and said Lowry's played the best golf of his life over the last since the Open, probably the last year. Like you pointed to the Masters where he came third, but like, he also had that little incident with Bo at the Masters, and he still finished all right,
Yeah, but he didn't play well after the Open, if you remember. Like, it's not like he's had a consistent spell since the Open. Like, I think that in the last 12 months, like 2022, he's been playing the best, most consistent golf of his life. I mean, he's consolidated himself within the top 25, which was never really where he sat. Like, he kind of got in there with the major win, I think, and then he fell back again. But like, he has been in contention more consistently and more regularly in the last year than I can ever recall him being in his career.
Yeah,
It's really talking about him last year. Sorry, Joe.
No, I think he played better golf in 2022 than 2019. Obviously, at 4 days, incredible 4 days in Portrush, but yeah, he was in contention so often. It was his putting though as well that let him down a lot last year. That was the thing, if you were to pick out.
He's putting on in general, but then like there were moments in time when he was in contention, as I mentioned, that he didn't, like he had like big mistakes, and like he blamed Bo for the layup on 13 on Saturday at Augusta. Like, I would say he was the one who hit the shot. He should have double checked the yardage himself. You know, I just wonder, was he blaming Bo maybe behind the scenes a little bit for some of the other things that we're not aware of? Like, that was a public one. There was the other one in Abu Dhabi early last year that we actually mentioned last week, where Bo gave him the wrong line. And Lowry, he got away with it, but Bo picked out a line. I actually heard Neil Manship talk about this before with Lowry, is that's the first thing he would say to anyone caddying for Lowry, and he said to Bo that you have to focus Lowry's mind in on a target. So that's one of Bo's jobs, or one of any of Lowry's caddy's jobs, is to refocus the target with him before he hits the shot. So like, that is something that the caddy is responsible for in that relationship, and Bo picked out the wrong target, or gave him the wrong target just before he hit the shot, and Lowry hit it at a hazard, as it turned out. And I think they got away with it. I got away with it in the sense that he made a par on the hole when he should have been looking at a birdie maybe. So I just wonder whether some of those other ones that didn't kind of make TV coverage or didn't make the press, that perhaps I think there could possibly be more to be seen, or as Cooper said, like, this is all just speculation. So wait to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, I love Larry, and I think we all do. He is one of the most loved Irish sports people, and you'd say it's almost sacrilegious to say that he's not all things great, but you know, no one is perfect, and it does like he there was definitely an element of Lowry biting at Bo, and I know it's like heat of the moment stuff, and it's serious business, and we've all been pissed off on a golf course before, and probably the easiest thing for the tour pro is to turn to the caddy. But it did make me feel. Sorry, it did make me cringe a little bit when I watched those incidents last year, you know. But anyway, we'll leave the Lowry Bo stuff there. Quickly touch on Torrey Pines. Cooper, John Rahm was the banker here. He's mugged us off big time with a shitty final round. What's the story?
Fucking big time. The Rory Rahm double at 22-1 just came up shy. I think he was well, to be fair to him now, I remember after round one, I was like, good luck. It's fucking he's the wheels have finally come off this unstoppable fucking chariot. But I think he was 116th after round one, and then 14th after round two. Like, it was a serious performance in terms of actually grinding out not just making a cut, but somehow getting yourself back into contention after a fairly sub kind of opener. But yeah, it was his for the taking. I think he was odds on. He might have been 8-11 in running during the tournament. I could see myself skyrocketing up the unplayable leaderboard. But thought about it. I think it was obviously finished on Saturday because of the American football on Sunday, but just all came crumbling down, and it led the way for the each way pick. To be fair, I did back him, but I should have actually backed him in this for Homa, the local kid. He's a phenomenal golfer. I think everyone that has a Twitter account that follows Max Homa loves Max Homa. In the last 25 months, he's won more PGA Tours than anyone else. And this is a guy who in 2018, and in 2018 he missed the he missed his card in the Corn Ferry Tour Championship. Like, it's not that long ago. You're looking back 5 years to find a guy who, I think on the 2017 PGA Tour year, he played something like around 15 to 20 PGA Tour events and made two cuts. Like, the change in that guy over the last 5 years, well, specifically in the last kind of 2 to 3, has been unbelievable. And to show the real type of guy that he is, he won 1.6 million on the Saturday. Obviously went off, watched the football on Sunday, and he was playing a skins game for $400 on a municipal course in the States on the Monday morning. And he won it, but he obviously had committed to it way beforehand. And he didn't pull out, even though he'd won on the PGA Tour the previous week. So he just seems like a really, really cool guy. But in terms of like actual kind of balls to go and get it, like he was still taking on pins with the lead on 18. Like, he's absolutely fearless. So yeah, he'd be one to keep on side moving forward. And if there's I know he's not in Pebble Beach this week, but if there's a PGA Tour event in California, just fucking I'll be getting on the Max train again.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy and such a funny guy that you can forget how good he is, I think, at times. He's 6 wins now, I think, on the PGA Tour, and as you said, I think 4 of them are in California. Seems such an obvious pick now, but yeah, he's insane. Like, when he gets a sniff of it, like, you know, he doesn't back out. And as you said, Cooper, the second shot to 18, like, there was no need for him to go for that, really. I mean, I think Ryder was in a bit of trouble and 17 having an awful time, but he still didn't need to go for it. And yeah, shows a kind of like an attitude, like, you know, just a win only, kind of doesn't want to get a place himself. But yeah, did you see as well on I think it was the Friday, or it was the second or third round, they had him mic'd up for the 13th hole, the par 5.
That was fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a first, wasn't it, for the PGA Tour?
Yeah, it was very interesting. And the right man to have to start it off. I'm not sure how much buy-in they'll get to do it, because for those who didn't see it, he was wearing an earpiece for the entire hole, so it wasn't like the thing that they do on the European Tour where, like, Tim Barter will interview someone for 30 seconds while they walk the ball. It was like he's got an AirPod in for the entire hole, so like you heard. Not only did you hear the conversations he was having with the caddy and his thought process, he was actually in conversation with Trevor Immelman in the commentary box while he was waiting to hit his second shot, for example, it was the 13 to the par 5, so he was waiting on the green. And then it actually couldn't have worked out better for CBS, because he ended up needing to get a ruling from where his ball finished for the second shot. It was kind of plugged above a bunker. So like, it actually turned out to be an interesting hole as well, not just a run of the mill. I think he ended up with a par, but it was far from run of the mill, to be fair. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they get buy-in from other people to do that, because like that's not going to be for everyone, and it won't come across well with everyone, because you need the personality and you need the charm.
Yeah,
like someone like
Charlie Hoffman or someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like someone like I'd say Rory would be brilliant for it. Harrington would be amazing.
Justin Rose would be a lovely guy to get on that.
Justin Rose would be someone that would, like, they don't want to ruin their ratings. I mean, like, you know, and given my thoughts on Justin Rose, I think we need to segue away from that very quickly, given we're already 45 minutes in.
It was great. It was a really good feature, though. Like, and again, yeah, it depends on who's in front of the mic. Like, it could be absolute dog shit, but Homa, like, playing a par 5, talking to his mentality, talking about his strategy, it was. I hope to see more of it.
Yeah, you'd say that they will do a little bit more of that going forward.
Oh, they will. I think they want to do. They want to do it every week. But like, it's just a question of if they get the buy-in from players, and as we said, like, who they get to do it. Like Speed being like Speed this week at Pebble Beach would be another great example of someone who you'd love to listen to their thought process playing a hole of golf, or especially in contention as well. I mean, like the fact that Homa was in contention made it even better. I mean, I'm not sure if it'll have the same impact if, like, we trot out to Max Homa on the 13th and he's 10 shots behind and he doesn't really care what happens with this next swing.
Yeah. Yeah, this could be. I know it's not really that relevant, but like when this Netflix documentary comes out this month, we obviously know all these golfers. We follow them. We hear kind of week to week what's going on. Not necessarily with their lives, but like as far as kind of golf and prep goes, or any stories to do with their game. But like when this comes out, especially the kind of the guys who've been kind of announced as the headliners for it, like they're going to turn into proper personalities now. So if you can imagine a Finau coming across really well in this, like they will be asking Finau every week, will you please do that? Because it is gonna give us a look into their personal lives more than we've ever kind of seen before. And not that they're not already celebrities, but in terms of capturing a wider audience outside of golf, these guys are like, yeah, they're going to be in the. I don't know what the right word is, because like they're obviously celebrities, but
mainstream. They're not. A lot of them aren't in the mainstream.
Yeah. Outside of golf,
like especially in the States, golf is a niche game. Like, so it's more about making them into household names over there.
Yeah,
because that's where the big market is, obviously.
Yeah, it's going to be unreal.
Well, before we come to a close, we'll do a little preview of the week ahead and look at our bets, see if we can add to our losers from last week. So 2 main tournaments this week. We've got on the PGA Tour, we're in Pebble Beach for the Pro-Am. We'll have to listen to Bill Murray, who the bloody Americans are obsessed with. They give him way too much airtime for my liking at this event. But reasonable field, we've got Matt Fitz, Spieth, and likely a pretty tired Seamus Power, who's going to be making his journey across to California from his time in the Middle East. And then on the DP World Tour, we've got the Ras Al Khaimah event in the UAE as well.
I was waiting for your pronunciation on that.
Yeah, good job as well.
Yeah,
you can tell by the tone. You can tell by the tone of your voice. You're really buzzing for the Ras Al Khaimah week.
It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be absolutely huge. Yeah, so obviously it's back to the run of the mill stuff for that, but it is a big week for the new Irish lads. We've got Murphy and Hurley who are going to make their first week, but it's a smaller purse, it's a weaker field.
Yeah, I don't know why they're bothering. I mean, they might as well just play the Mullingar Scratch Cup in the summer instead of this tin pot joke that's going on over in the Middle East.
Yeah. Also, just worth noting, not that we're going to actually talk about it properly, but that Saudi International is on this week, which is the Asian Tour. The one that Harold Varnell won last year. He held that rake over putt from.
Oh yeah, that was actually great.
Yeah, you love the Saudi Invitational.
I did. That was back when I thought Harold Varner was sound.
Literally.
Evident. Yeah. And he also, just not to get into this, but just for the record, he beat Bubba Watson with that raker. I mean, who doesn't want to see that?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, did you see what he said this week? I don't want to.
Yeah.
The Bubba Watson. I think.
What about his kid?
Yeah, he was getting interviewed, and he was being asked why he went to LIV. He said, "My 10-year-old, we were watching the golf at home, and he said, oh, the Aces." And Bubba asked him, "You know the Aces?" He's like, "Yeah, everyone knows the Aces. The Aces always win." And then he went on to compare, it's going to be like a franchise like the Yankees or the Chiefs. And like, I think it was an interview piece, and all of the comments underneath it were just like, "No, don't believe you. That never happened." So like, it was the cringiest. Bar Mickelson's kind of trying to stay relevant on Twitter recently as well. It was the worst bit of propaganda I've ever seen in regards to LIV. So
to bring his bloody kid into it. Shocking.
Yeah, literally.
No morals.
No morals.
In fairness to him and the likes of Harold Varner, maybe this is harsh, but neither of them are the brightest lads, I'd say. You know, like Harold Varner, I heard him give an interview about LIV before. I won't go into details, but he just came across as so uneducated about the whole thing, you know. But anyway, that's probably a separate matter. To wrap things up, we'll do our betting piece. So if you remember from last week, the rules are simple. We each get one bet of €10 per week, and we're running a profit and loss over the entire season. And the overall loser for the year is going to have some sort of forfeit yet to be decided. Maybe the listeners could come in with some suggestions. Now, and please note that we cannot predict the future, and these bets will likely be wrong, as we all were last week. With all
we were
that,
close, though. We were close.
We were close. In fairness,
actually, to be fair, I said Homa each way as a personal bet. Dave said Tigala.
Each way, that paid out. So we weren't entirely. I don't like the rules of this game anymore. I think being restricted to one bet, is unfair. I was in profit last week. I backed Tigala and Harrington. And Harrington really rubbed salt in the wound with that 65 on day 2 after opening with an 81 to come out with a 65 and still missed the cut was just rubbing salt in the wounds there.
Well, come on then. Give us the right bet this week. You gave us Harrington last week. You should have given us Sagala. Give me your bet.
So again, I'm torn. I'm torn here between a few names. Like, I think the safe bet, one of the safe bets that I've considered is Putnam in Pebble Beach. He's 22 or 25 on Paddy Power. He's made 14 consecutive cuts. I think there's like 5 top 15s amongst there, and he was tight to Pebble Beach last year. Sorry. So like he seems like the safe bet, someone who'll get me back on track. But I'm tempted to go back to Harrington. I really am. I'm tempted to double down and go back. Harrington's playing in Ras Al Khaimah. He's 33-1. Like are we going to hold one bad round against him? 181 followed by 65. Do you know what? I'm going back to the Harrington well. I said it last week. He's going to win this year. He's going to win. One bad round. I'm locking him in. 5 each way. 33-1. Harrington's going to do it for me.
I like it. I thought about it myself. Okay, Cooper.
Yeah, I'm torn between a few as well. Like the Pebble Beach is notorious for throwing up crazy winners. Like I think the shortest price winner in the last 5 years is I think around 20-1 Daniel Berger, and as high as 850-1 with Ted Potter Jr. So like it really is throwing darts. It's more a bit of crack, but obviously in one of the best golf settings in the world. But I went to look for Mav McNeely's odds, and he's only 14-1. Like it shows how kind of weak the field is, or like how unpredictable this kind of 3-course Pebble Beach Pro-Am format can be. So I then had a look at Andrew Putnam, who's 22-1, who is also, I think they're 2 good each way shouts. Looked over at Saudi then, and Nikolai Hogard is, I think, going to do very well on this very long course, as he's won it before as well. So I was between the 3 of them and decided to land on Putnam at Pebble Beach, who I think it's 8th place with Paddy Power. He's 22-1. And yeah, he was 54-hole leader at this last year and threw it down the sink. I think he finished 6th. But yeah, you don't really need to be an accurate driver around here. You just need to hit the greens and try and be a good putter. And normally green regulation is a good indicator, and he's around the top 40, 30 on the PGA Tour for that. So yeah, Andrew Putnam, 22-1 each way.
Okay.
I'll be raging. I'll be absolutely raging. I have just for the record, I have also backed Putnam. It's just I haven't cashed him in as the bet of the week. But
oh yeah, he's definitely winning there.
That was very easy, right, Joe?
I didn't want to go too near the DP World Tour event this weekend because there's not much to go on apart from last year. But yeah, gonna go with the Pebble Beach event. It's an approach play golf course. I think it's 1 to 3 circuits there. I think they're playing 3 courses. The main Pebble Beach course they're playing twice. And all 3 of them rank the shortest courses on tour. Like they're up there anyway. So approach play is important. A lot of wedges, and then obviously putts from kind of 15 feet. They say is kind of the key. With that in mind, and then I did look at Maverick McNeely as well. He's a California man, so just going off the going off the Max Homa argument from last week, that kind of was pushing me towards him. He hasn't won on tour yet. That's the only negative I was kind of thinking. But the man who's obviously won here in 2017, runner-up last year, turned 2021, did the most Jordan Spieth thing ever 2 weeks ago by being tied for the lead after round one and then missing the cut. So following Zalatoris missing the cut last week, I'll probably have a nervous wait, but I'm going to go with Jordan Spieth at 10.
Brave.
Yeah, he could have easily missed the cut as win, but I think he's shown at Augusta, like he has certain course he likes, I think, and he's shown good form here. So and he finished 13th in the Tournament of Champions. So it was an okay showing, 19 under. So I'll go with Spieth this week. Each way, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we need to get some money on the board, Con.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely on each way. It's funny though, I had 3 names on my list. I had Harrington, I had Maverick McNeely, and then I had Rasmus Højgaard. So we're either, onto something by having similar names, or we're all just as thick as each other.
Nothing wrong with a bit of groupthink, Con. Come on, join me on the Harrington bandwagon.
Yeah, I'm very tempted, but I'm actually going to go with Højgaard, 18-1. Joe, I know you said stay away from the event on DP World Tour, but given the fields are so weak at it this week, I like the idea of, there's a top dog there in Højgaard, and he's only going to be competing against 10% of the field, really. So that's my logic for Rasmus Højgaard. I'm going to go 5 or 18.
That's logic that you can just transfer straight over to Harrington. So
yeah,
I'm liking this, and also it's a long golf course over there in Harrington, as we know now. Hits it further than ever, so I'm all in.
I love it.
And just hopefully we're not all on minus €20 next week.
It's very possible. Very possible. Yeah. Right, we'll leave it there, boys. Cheers, everyone, for joining another week of Unplayable. We will chat to you next week.